Carlos Ghosn's lawyer had hoped to walk out of this detention facility with his client after securing his release on Thursday. But Nissan's ousted chairman could spend Christmas behind bars after being arrested again. This time, prosecutors accuse him of using the firm's money to pay $16.6 million to cover his personal losses. They also say Ghosn transferred $14 million from the company's account to his own. Nissan seems content to distance itself from the scandal.
The most important mission for the company's future is to get past the serious fraud, including the indictment and the financial misconducts that were carried out entirely for personal gain.
But many others are standing by Ghosn, who says he's innocent. Renault's appointed an interim boss in his place and says it hopes to reinstate him once his legal troubles end. This skepticism is shared by some in Japan who see Ghosn's arrest as a move to consolidate control over the Nissan-Renault Mitsubishi alliance.
It seems like a power game among the board members of Nissan Motors.
The governments of Japan and France own major stakes in the alliance, and Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says they'll weather this storm together.
I acknowledge the importance of maintaining a stable alliance among Nissan, Renault, and Mitsubishi as the symbol of Japan-France industrial cooperation. I had a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron, and we both shared the same view.
But the tie-up that created one of the world's largest automakers is also among the world's most complex corporate mergers, and it's been criticized for being too dependent on Ghosn. If his case drags on for much longer or leaves him unable to return to his former job, the three-car companies may have little choice but to part ways. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
And Mobin joins me here now in the studio. Hi, Mobin. So, were it not for these new charges against Carlos Ghosn, he could have been released as early as Friday. Can you tell us a bit more about the latest allegations?
So, the latest allegation is that he used $16.6 million, well, he lost $16.6 million in personal investments, which he then transferred those losses to the company account, in essence causing the same magnitude of loss, not to himself, but to the company, back in October 2008.
So we know that all of these, this is just the latest in a string of allegations that have emerged that prosecutors have used to justify his detention. Why is it that Japanese prosecutors seem to be able to keep on arresting and re-arresting him almost indefinitely, it seems?
Well, legally in Japan, it's possible for prosecutors to do that, to bring separate charges in the same case and continue to arrest people for that 10-day period, which lets them basically continue their interrogations, because during this period, a legal counsel is not necessarily available to the defendant.
Yeah, and it is becoming more clear as the saga drags on that there was clear tension within the Mitsubishi Nissan-Renault alliance, which Carlos Ghosn was the boss of, and in fact he came up with it. Do you think that these ongoing allegations against Ghosn are perhaps an attempt by the Japanese car makers to take that power back?
Look, certainly there's been a lot of rumours about this, even before his arrest, about how the Japanese side was not very happy with the alliance. They felt they were losing control over the alliance. And then if you look at the charges, first when he was arrested, it was for underreporting his income from 2010 to 2015. Subsequently, a similar charge was brought for the period 2015 onwards to current date. And now the latest charge dates back all the way to 2008, which really begs the question, where was the rest of the company, its accounting standards, auditing, all of those internal controls surely couldn't have missed things for over a decade. And really that's what's really lending sort of credence to these assertions, especially given the responses from the two sides. Renault very keen on having him back, only putting in place an interim CEO as we saw, and Nissan looking very, very eager to move on.
We know Carlos Ghosn is seen as a titan of the automotive industry. When he came up with this alliance between the three car makers, it was seen as a game changer at the time that managed to save the Japanese car makers at the very least, if not Renault as well. Do you think this huge global alliance can survive without Carlos Ghosn at the helm?
There's certainly huge question marks over it. Look, we don't even have a word for the arrangement that these companies have. It's not a merger, it's not an amalgamation. They have a lot of operations that are tied, they have similar vendors, but at the same time, financially, they are completely different entities. And in a lot of those verticals, the reporting line goes straight to Ghosn. And we've seen over the past 3 or 4 years that sort of mid and senior management below him, a lot of people leaving from those ranks. So now more than ever, it seems very difficult for the company to be able to move on as an alliance after Ghosn.
Now, in terms of other Japanese car makers, Toyota obviously is the strongest one. What's your outlook on the car industry in Japan more generally? Do you think they can survive competitors from markets like South Korea and even China, where their products are cheaper and are actually getting better in terms of their standards?
That's a very interesting question. Look, we've seen Japanese car makers over the past decade and a half really make inroads into the North American market, especially when oil prices were surging. We saw a lot of those SUVs, the kinds that Ford, GM, those companies make, being replaced by these very sort of cost-efficient machines being produced in Japan. And as far as industrial prowess goes and engineering prowess goes, they seem to be far ahead of the competition. The trouble is in the financial management of these companies, as we've seen dozens of scandals coming out, and each of them seems to have something to do with a lack of internal controls.
Interesting. Okay, we'll see what happens as the 10 or 20 days of his further detention comes to an end. Mobin Nasir, thank you as always.